Hello my friends, this is Sylvie Curry, Lady of Q, and today I'm going to be trimming up this whole packer brisket so that I can get it in a brine for 5 to 7 days to make some pastrami. Well, I think I've done enough trimming. I always have to remind myself that this is not a competition brisket. This is a brisket which I'm going to brine to make pastrami with, so it doesn't have to be on its ultimate best behavior. In other words, for competition, I probably would have done a whole lot more trimming, but this is it. I've got enough meat surface where that brine can get in and do its thing. These are the ingredients which go into making my pickling spice. And usually I make a pickling spice to use during the summer mostly when I do things like pickle cucumbers, pickle eggs, all sorts of things that I might pickle. I use this blend. And the ingredients that are in that jar are the ones that are here. And I'm going to use these same ingredients for making pastrami. This is going to be my pickling spice blend for my pastrami, which I'm going to smoke. I'm going to start off with, this is dill seed, and that's 2 teaspoons of dill seed. Got a tablespoon of allspice, bay leaves, and that's about a couple of bay leaves that are in pieces. Got 1 cinnamon stick, which I'm going to crush up a little bit more than that. Got a tablespoon of black pepper, a tablespoon of coriander seeds, 2 tablespoons of mustard seed, 1 tablespoon of red pepper flakes, got a tablespoon of juniper berries, tablespoon of cloves, whole cloves, a teaspoon of ginger, and a ½ teaspoon of freshly ground nutmeg. What I'm going to first do is take a number of the ingredients except for the ginger and the nutmeg, and I'm going to toast it in my skillet here. And toasting brings out a lot of the flavors and aromas of these seeds and helps them to become more aromatic, I guess is the word you use. Before toasting, I'm going to take a little bit of the black pepper, coriander, mustard seed, juniper berry, and allspice berry and crush a few of them, not all of them, just a few. And that'll bring out a little bit more of the flavors in those items. And that's just a rough chop. I've got a skillet here on the stove top, got a medium flame going on, and I'm going to add these seeds and stuff to the skillet so that I can get them toasted. Just dump them all in the skillet. And the one thing we don't want to do is burn it. We just want to toast it, just to get that fragrance out. There's my cinnamon stick. I tore it up in smaller pieces. Dill seed and the red pepper. Some of the seeds have started to pop, and you can get that fragrance coming off. Very aromatic right now. This doesn't take long. Like I said, I don't want to burn it. I just want to get the toasty so that those aromas and the oils in those seeds come out a little bit. I'm going to turn this heat off and just let the residual in the pan do the rest of the work. I'm now going to add the ginger and the nutmeg and blend it with the other pickling spices. These are all the components that are going to go into making the brine that I will be using to cure a beef brisket to make pastrami. I've got 1.5 cups of kosher salt, 7 or 8 cloves of garlic, which I've smashed. No need to peel it because it's going to be thrown away later on anyway. I've got 1/3 of a cup of those pickling spices. I've got 4 teaspoons of pink cure, and this is prod powder. And I've got a cup of sugar. I'm going to start off with 8 cups of water in order to boil or to simmer all these seasonings and spices and salt and sugars just to get them dissolved. And then later on I'll let that cool, and then I'm going to be adding 1.5 gallons of more water, and then we'll put our brisket in that. Let's start out by adding these components. Here goes my salt, sugar, garlic, prod powder or curing powder, and pickling spices. I've got this all blended. I'm going to take it to the stove top and simmer it until the sugars and the salt are dissolved. This is the base for our brine, and it's cooled off, and I'm getting ready to add it to the tray that I'm going to use to brine this brisket. Keep in mind I need to add another 1.5 gallons of water. This is my brine concentrate. So I took my pickling spices and added salt, and I added sugar, and I added curing, prog number 1 curing powder, the pink one, and I boiled it, simmered it for about 1/2 hour, let it cool down, refrigerate it so now it is cold. And because that was only 8 cups, I need to add another 1.5 gallons to this in order to get the proper concentration of spices in there. So that's 8 cups. Another 8 cups. So that's 1.5 gallons in there. I'm going to go get my trim brisket, put it in the solution, and let it rest for 5 to 7 days. I've got my brisket in my brine solution, and I'm mindful that I have to go in and maybe flip it every couple of days just so that I get an even brine, because we're going to have a little bit of lift here. And I know that if I put a plate or something over that, that also gets in the way of the brining liquid getting through to that section of the meat. So we're going to put this in the refrigerator, and I've got my refrigerator in the garage, so I'm going to haul it down there. I have my hubby haul it down there since it's quite heavy. And 5 to 7 days, hopefully we will have a brisket ready to be smoked for pastrami. These are the ingredients for my pastrami rub. This recipe is an adaptation of Meathead Golden over at AmazingRibs.com, his recipe for pastrami, which he says is almost like Cat's Deli in New York. What I have here are 2 tablespoons of black peppercorn, 2 tablespoons of ground black pepper, a tablespoon, maybe a little bit more, of coriander. I've got a tablespoon of brown sugar, tablespoon of paprika. I've got a teaspoon of onion powder, a teaspoon of garlic powder, a teaspoon of mustard seed, and a 1/2 teaspoon of ground mustard. I've got a coffee filter, and I had the idea of cracking the black peppercorns, the mustard seed, and the coriander seeds inside the coffee filter with a rolling pin. Now, it could have been just as easy to take these ingredients and hammer it out with an iron pan or something like that, but, well, you know, I came up with this idea and I'm going to do it. Let's see if this works. I'm going to first take the mustard seed, so that's the smallest amount, and we'll sort of pull back the top, and we'll just go over it with the rolling pin. Now the whole idea is that you don't want to grind it up, say like you would in a grinder. You just want to crack it. Go over a little bit more. And then I'm going to put it here in my bowl. Okay, now I've got those all cracked. I'm then going to add the remainder of my ingredients and then just give that a mix. I just took my brisket out of the refrigerator after an overnight soak in some plain cold water to try to draw a lot of that salt out that accumulated in there while it was brining. Previously, as you remember, I had it on a brine. It was scheduled to be a 5 to 7 day, but I wound up going 9 days. I'm going to dry the brisket off and then prepare my pastrami rub and get ready to rub this baby down so that we can let it go overnight with the rub on it. This is the bottom half, and I'm going to start seasoning that section first, and then we'll turn it over and do the other side. And I've got my pastrami rub, and we're going to just coat that all over. Take this and turn it over. So I'm going to put this in the refrigerator, and tomorrow we'll get her smoked. My brisket for pastrami has been on now for almost 5.5 hours, and I'm going to pull it and wrap it. I'm getting ready to wrap the brisket pastrami. And it's just a little bit of water just to get some moisture in here. There we go. Now I'm going to put her back on the smoker. I pulled the brisket off of the smoker about half hour ago. Let it rest. I'm going to open it up. It reached a temp of, hot still. A temp of 204. It's looking good. I'm going to let it rest overnight. Let it get cool. And see how this pastrami's doing. Got lots of juices in there. I'm going to save those juices. I know I said I was going to let it rest overnight before I cut it, but I couldn't resist. There we have pastrami. Tender. A taste of it. Very good taste. Not at all salty. So I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to leave it whole, and I'll do more slices tomorrow. This is the brisket pastrami, all sliced up, and it's cold. It's been refrigerated overnight. This slice is from the flat, and you can see it's less marbled or less fatty. This slice is from where the flat comes over the top of the point. The point is this well marbled area, and this fat here is the fat that separates the flat from the point. These are slices of the point alone. This is a chunk of the point. And more slices of the flat and the point where they come across each other. I chunked these pieces of the pastrami because they were on the end and they were crumbling as I was cutting them.